All right, everyone. I wanted to do another tier list today, and today we'll be ranking just a few magic systems. I'm keeping this one fairly few because I wanted to talk about each of these magic systems in depth and why they're either so good or so bad at accomplishing their intended purpose. Because when it comes down to it, an author's magic system is usually a very good way to examine authorial intent because it's just this hard boiled down look at something the author spent a lot of time and effort crafting to convey something very specific and certain to you. They're always built in a way to accomplish a specific goal, and the way I will be ranking these magic systems is how well they accomplish that goal while maintaining the world and atmosphere and believability and stakes of the story they take place in. So there's kind of two competing factors here for a good magic system. One, do they have a clear intent? Is it meant to add something specific to the world? What is the author trying to get to you through this magic system? And two, does achieving that goal poorly or well hurt the book in any way? Because those are really two honest takes at what a magic system can do for a fantasy book or series. So without any further ado, let's start with what is widely considered one of the most popular magic systems ever in all of fantasy, Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. Now this one for me is a very obvious choice for S tier, and I don't think I have to explain why it should be S tier, but I wanted to put this first because it's such a clear example of it done well. Mistborn's magic system by Brandon Sanderson clearly is trying to, one, add a cool, awesome, badass magic system to the book. Pretty much every magic system is trying to do that. But it also helps convey so many things from the characters. As our characters grow in strength, as they become more confident as people, they utilize this magic system in more brutal and effective ways. It grows with them. Well, at first they're on shaky legs, flinging themselves from buildings. As we get further along, especially as our main protagonist becomes more confident, the execution of this magic becomes so much more brutal. And it's funny, there's this level of lethality to anyone who can use the metals within Mistborn that I think really goes underappreciated. Like, there's a character who takes another person's head and just caves it in by headbutting it in maybe one of the most brutal deaths I've read in fantasy recently. This is not grimdark, though. It's just a very brutal death in Mistborn. And that's not talked about a whole lot. This is a gruesome story because this magic system is such a good killing tool. It's something that can be used directly for murder very, 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 very well. Do I think Brandon was trying to make some kind of brutality, just murder magic system? No. But he clearly, as an author, was trying to give our characters something that could help enhance the changes going on inside them for us, the reader, to have this metaphorical manifestation of it. And I think it serves that purpose remarkably well. Outside of just being a very well crafted, very badass, very interesting magic system, all the magic systems within Mistborn are able to help us learn and understand the characters better, and their personalities then reflect it, which can come across cheaply. Having like a trickster character who just can do the tricky things is, that's kind of boring. Like, oh, that just feels like it's happening because you need it to and it sounds good. But what I appreciate here about Mistborn is it feels more like the characters became who they are because they had the abilities they did, rather than vice versa, which I honestly can't exactly pin down why I feel that way, but with certain characters having certain abilities, they just feel right. It doesn't feel forced, and I enjoy that. That's something I'm still trying to figure out exactly how Brandon did, because I'm still impressed by it to this day. So Mistborn across the board is well done magic system that enhances the reading experience, doesn't diminish the stakes. In fact, it raises the stakes all the time, and I love it deeply for that. Next book, we have Wizard of Earthsea. Now, I know this book isn't as beloved or huge as Mistborn currently is in fantasy, but this is something that is considered a classic and is huge in its own right. And if you haven't checked it out, I recommend you do, because it's wonderful, younger, audience-targeted fantasy. And for me, the magic system here is kind of stuck between B and A. I'll drop it in A just because I think, well, I personally don't love the concept behind it. I think it does what it wants to extremely well. When you have the more words of power based magic system that Wizards of Earthsea does, you can quickly lose your audience. The believability goes away. Like, why did this person just say this at that moment? And then done, you're good. But with Wizard of Earthsea, the magic system is so often used for such creative and beautiful things that it just enhances the story overall. And to me, I really enjoy when an author doesn't just use their magic system for a kill, kill, murder, murder, war, but it shows a utility in life outside of that. It makes me feel much more immersed in the world we're in, and Wizard of Earthsea does that beautifully. Maybe only beaten by Harry Potter in terms of utilizing a magic system in everyday life so well. So that's where I'm going to put that. Really love Wizard of Earthsea's magic system in execution, though not necessarily in deeply of concept. But it doesn't have the stakes raising or world crafting like Mistborn does quite as much within the actual text of the story. Next up, we have The Black Prism by Brent Weeks. Drafting, which is an A tier for me, easily. It feels very scientific, well, obviously having no basis in actual science, but we have these people who can draft light into themselves of different wavelengths, and depending on which wavelengths they can draft which colors, they can then output different substances, different forms of luxin. And in terms of adding to combat, few have done it as well as Brent Weeks did here. He has written some of the best magic fight scenes ever, period, full stop, with the Black Prism Lightbringer as a whole. But that being said, there are a couple things left desired for me. I love it when a magic system is tied in with the lore, and Brent Weeks has done that a fair bit. The religion has the magic system in there, but we know almost nothing beyond that. I want more historical context for the magic. I want to know, what were the foundations of the creation of this world? I'm a very big on like the mythos guy, and we don't get that quite as much. The series isn't over as well, so I want to see this series end and see the magic used from beginning to end of the story. I know Mistborn isn't either because there are more Mistborn books coming, but the first era is, and that told a very complete story. We don't have the complete story for Black Prism, and we're still learning about this magic system. So I can't quite throw it up to S, but I will say that Black Prism does have the potential to go up to S. It does raise the stakes, absolutely, especially, and this is something that Brent Weeks brilliantly put in his work, and I feel like raises the reader's interest in this magic system so greatly. And that is having severe consequences for using this magic for almost every character. You will eventually suffer greatly, without getting into deep spoilers here. This is not really a spoiler for the series. If you draft too much, you will then go insane and be killed by the society you live in. They'll take you and they will kill you in a religious ceremony. So for me, very, very much so dig that. I love if you can make it so that there's a high cost to using magic, especially with a magic form as powerful as the one Brent Weeks made here. Immediately hooks me in a lot more. So for me, in terms of the two criteria here, Brent Weeks did an excellent job of crafting an idea that worked very well, enhanced his overall story. It has a clear purpose of being this tool for fighting, but also this wonderful crafting tool. It's truly remarkable how well Brent Weeks brought in drafting to be something to build physical constructs. There's like architecture here that's just wonderful to get into, and he really lets the reader explore the consequences and ideas here magnificently. So very well done there. And in terms of enhancing the story, absolutely, because a lot of the story here revolves around the magic system, the lore around the magic system, the religious that's tied into the magic system. 100%. It's just not unlike the gold standard for what I'm talking about here in terms of lore and magic system being tied in would be the Lord of the Rings. Obviously, the whole foundation of the world is spelled out and involves the magic system and all that and the creatures and blah, blah, blah. And it's not on that level. But then again, so is not Mistborn. Because Mistborn's a complete story, at least Era 1 is, and we know everything we can about the magic system to this point, at least its foundations that are going to be grown on top of, I'm putting it in S tier. And I'm going to wait a little bit before I ever put Lightbringer's magic system up in S tier. Now we have Wizard's first rule, and I don't want people to think I'm just going to dunk on this book. I'm not trying to just crap on it, but I did put it in here because it is a wonderful example of how not to do your magic system in my mind. Now, I will caveat that by saying there's nothing wrong with enjoying Terry Goodkind's magic system, because he did very much so have good ideas with his magic system. There are certain spells and things thrown around here that I found to be fascinating with his magic system, and I'm very much so willing to give him that. At one point, there's a spell where basically someone is being slowly constricted. It starts over a great area, and then it slowly binds in on them until they literally cannot move. That's a great idea. That's a high stakes, I'm hooked idea. But the problem is Terry Goodkind absolutely demolishes the stakes of his story with his magic system, like Miley Cyrus Wrecking Ball level here. And that is because his magic system is used as a MacGuffin just again and again and again and again, to the point where I don't think anyone can ever feel like the protagonist is in danger, because something will happen, some little caveat will come along that just fixes it. And yes, I'm going off one book, but I have taken the time to talk to many people who have read more of these books, and the problem definitely continues from what I understand. So I just want to use this as a prime example of, if you have your magic system, you must put limits. There has to be confines. You need to establish, then build, subvert, and try to pay off. Because if you just say, he gets out of it because he becomes friends with the dragon, and the dragon's his friend, and there's actually a box in his head that lets him forget of all the damage, and he's fine. To me, no, you can't do that. And this is a prime example of good ideas. I'm willing to give them for one of the categories. There are multiple spells and situations, and even a torture device that is definitely creative that Goodkind made that were solid. And if he had spent the time to try and make it so they're built more naturally into the story and the way the protagonist is saved, I would have given him a lot more credit. But as of right now, absolutely undercut, swept the legs out for just the way it's MacGuffined. But, and I did this very intentionally, now we have another series coming in that MacGuffins the crap out of it, but in a very so whimsical way that it earns it, and that's Harry Potter. I'm not going to put Harry Potter in S, which I know a lot of people will consider blasphemy, but for me, an S tier. Yes, okay, I'm going to go A tier for Harry Potter. Hear me out. I know there's people mad that I'm putting it so high, and there's going to be people mad that I'm putting it lower. Hear me out, for the love of God, please. Harry Potter has a stupendous magic system. It's very, very good and accomplishes the author's intent magnificently. J.K. Rowling wanted to build a magic system to cause the most amount of wonder and whimsy possible. And I don't think that has been done better than her accomplishment in the wizarding world. She caused an incredible amount of kids, literally tens if not hundreds of millions of children, to become in love with fantasy, the ideas of magic, because she was able to craft so much wonder and things like that with her magic system. Truly the best maybe ever done in terms of causing that in kids ever, and that alone definitely deserves A tier. That being said, incredibly soft magic system, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But what I do want to say, and the reason it's not S tier for me, is the plot does suffer at times because just the magic system is there to serve the plot and solve the problems. And I think it's not as bad as many other series. Otherwise, I would knock it lower. There are still stakes within Harry Potter. There are still times where you feel everyone's in danger. That is still there. She did not cripple her own book by any means at all, and I'm not claiming that. But there are certain times, without a doubt, the magic system's saving of the heroes feels completely unearned. So for that, it's not S. I'm talking about a few famous instances where just things swoop in, solve the problem, definitely more so in the earlier books. This problem almost entirely went away later on in the series. But in the early books, things just, especially because love. If you ever say because love, you've killed stakes for me, at least for the storyline we're following in that specific book. So for me, A tier, S tier in many, many, many ways, but this is a personal preference list, obviously, so it's going to be A. I love it. It's phenomenal. So good at doing what it's meant to do, and the author accomplished that so well. But the stakes for me in a couple of the books really did become harmed just because we were able to introduce, this thing needs to be here, so it is. Now we're getting into the lore selections here, and these are actually both good examples, and I just wanted to talk about them because of their really interesting ideas put forth. Narnia, for me, I've dunked on Narnia a bit on this channel. I don't love Narnia. I have problems with the series, but its magic system has a few very cool features to it. But I want to touch on one specifically where C.S. Lewis, he doesn't have the hardest, most fleshed out magic system of all time by any means, way, shape, or form. But there's a couple ideas I really like. And one of them is having different lands have different levels of magic to them. And this is something other series have done as well. Lord of the Rings even has that. But this is explored more in terms of like consequences of, the ideas of these whimsical creatures fighting against these more like mechanical they're not mechanical, but like human-based things. And then there's this invasionary force where they were afraid to try and conquer Narnia because they know how much magic is in Narnia. And I know that's been done before, but for me, it was the first time when I was reading fantasy where I found the idea where it was like, oh, we can't conquer them because they got a lot of magic. Well, maybe we can, but we got to be really careful. Like they're magicals all hell over there. So that's neat. And it's a very good classic example of just classic fantasy magic systems where, you have the evil witch character and spells. And while I'm not the biggest fan of Narnia, I'm not going to hate on its magic system. Magic in Narnia is well done. It's built into all kinds of things, and there's a lot of mythos and lore around it, and it has big world ramifications. So for me, Narnia is going to be B tier. Dig it. Not the best ever. Now we have an stupidly easy S tier choice here, and that is Lord of the Rings. Basically everything positive I've said about all the previous magic systems, except for maybe combat, you can say for Lord of the Rings. It does lack a lot of detailed, well-explained combat magic, and there are a couple MacGuffin-y things within Lord of the Rings, but in terms of tying your magic into the lore, it's never been done better, and it might not ever be done better. Harry Potter had very good magic tied into the lore, but Tolkien wrote so many endless pages about how his world was built. Gods became demigods, became blah, 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 Gandalf, blah, 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 elves, blah, blah. All these things are so well explained. The magic system is so understood in its foundation, in the creation of the world. And that's something that many, and I want to see more do it, but many fantasy authors do not do, is they build a magic system, but they don't tell us how this all came into existence. And I know many fantasy fans just don't care. They don't really care. They're like, who cares? I don't need to know how this world came to be, what happened to the gods, how we got to the point we are. I just want a story in the world we're in. Personal preference-wise, I love to know the history of your world, and tying in magic to history, it's pretty goddamn cool. So for me, obvious S tier choice because it is probably the best example of lore and histories and magic all being so tied in beautifully, and the deteriorating magic throughout Middle-earth, how it's slowly going away and this industrial age is rising up, and that's Tolkien's whole philosophy, was so beautiful. Really, the magic is infused in everything. I wish we got a better explanation of the magic in the actual battles, but that wasn't the style of the time and wouldn't be for many, many decades to come, nearly a century, so I get it. That's fine. And now we're going to go ahead and move on to, I have a series I have not finished, but I really liked a magic system here that falls into a lot of ideas I don't typically like, and that's Malazan Book of the Fallen. I got, I think, 3 books into this one, and I don't fully comprehend the magic system. Very willing to say that. It's a B-tier magic system for me now, with a whole lot of potential to go up and down. But what I liked is, I think Steven Erikson made a magic system that is not very precise. You don't know a whole lot about it. But in terms of raising stakes, he almost pulls an opposite, where he uses a not incredibly well-defined magic system to raise the stakes, something that is really hard and rare to do, and I commend him immensely because he did it fantastically well. Because you do not understand the magic system so well, when someone who's on the other side or on their own side starts doing these really grand things with magic that I've seen so far in Malazan Book of the Fallen, you feel insecure. You're like, I don't know what this is going to be. This is huge. And it does have the kind of tinges of that Lord of the Rings magic built into everything, the lore, the history a bit. It's wonderful to see an author take something that I didn't think could be done so effectively and do it so effectively, of having a lesser defined magic system, at least to where I got to in the series, help raise up the stakes, make it feel like this mysterious force could cause everything to come tumbling down or everything to raise up. Very neat. So for me, because I haven't actually finished the series, I'm going to put it in B. It certainly could go up to A. It could go down to C if he fails at maintaining that era of mystery. But I'm curious, to say the least, and I will be starting Malazan very soon. I think after I finish the 2 books I'm currently on. Next up, we have Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings. So there is a lot of love for the Stormlight Archives magic system. People across the board are completely and utterly in love with it. I get it. I don't understand people who say it's better than Mistborn. Maybe because they like the fact that it's a little grander, a little more epic. That I can understand a bit. But to me, it's not quite as well defined yet. There's certain elements of it, especially with some of the stuff going on with Shallan, where I'm not fully understanding. Well, I understand, but I'm not super invested to the point where I'm wanting to explore more. So for me, Sanderson's magic system in Stormlight Archive, and I'm going to get crap for this, I'm aware. For me right now, it's a B to an A. It's kind of stuck in here. I think I'm going to go ahead and leave it in there's some elements of it. What's funny and what's really interesting here is Brandon is so good at using his magic. His utilization of the magic he's built so far feels A tier. But the actual built one to me is more along the, I like it. It's good. It's B tier. It's hovering here. The ideas are wonderful, and it's tied into the world really well. The current social classes and structures. For me, for that reason, I think I'm going to go ahead and drop it into A. It's just the actual core magic itself I'm not in love with. I love what he's tied it into. I love the stakes it's able to help build, the way it's elevating characters, how we're getting this prophecy kind of situation going on. Very neat. Love that. But I don't know. I wanted to include this one because I personally am actually a bit, not frustrated, but just wanting more now. And we're so far into the series, I'm just surprised we haven't gotten it yet. Because, we're 3 books in. Yeah, 3 books in. And usually by 3 books into a series, you have at least a firm understanding, or you're done with the series, of what's going on. And now, of course, we're going to talk about The Wheel of Time. By Robert Jordan. And I want to include this one because, it's me, it's Wheel of Time. It's an S tier for me, obvious S tier. But it's the best example, in my opinion, of including multiple magic systems with each other that either do closely interplay or pull completely out. Also a great example of giving information and withholding information properly. So talking about the Wheel of Time's magic systems, we have many within the Wheel of Time, some of them closely intertwined, some of them not. If you want completely no spoilers whatsoever going into the Wheel of Time, you might want to click off now, because I'm going to get into just what the magic systems are, and some people could consider those spoilers. But for me, you have channeling, which is split into Sighting, Sidar. You have the Dream World, you have Wolf Brothers, and then you have the true power from the Dark One. And there's obviously ones that are more closely connected there. The true power, Sighting, Sidar, all kind of overlapping and working together, and they're meant to. Then you have the Dream World, which has elements of being tied into channeling in certain ways. It definitely interacts, and you can access it through weapons or tools of channeling. But it's still its very own distinct thing. And, well, it's not as hard a magic system as channeling, and it's kind of its own separate world. There's a level of magic and mystery there that's softer, and Robert Jordan uses to have that more whimsical feeling at times. There's definitely whimsy brought in with channeling, but in the World of Dreams, where will and just learning to craft the world around you becomes core to actually being able to take advantage of what's going on, to me, that really elevated the Wheel of Time's magic in the way where it made everything feel a little more soft, a little more malleable without losing the stakes at all, because the Dream World wasn't a place to lower stakes. It was a place where you could die at any moment if you don't know what you're doing, and even a spare thought could kill you. And then we have Wolf Brothers, which, okay, yes, awesome. You got to bring in some puppers to your magic system. I'm very down for that. But it also felt completely separated while having this one tangential link into the World of Dreams, where they share the World of Dreams weirdly and oddly, and I like that. It helped everything feel connected, yet it did let basically the Wheel of Time feel like there's so much magic left unexplored. There's so much older ways. There's these things that feel so untapped, and the modern humans feel so ignorant for not being aware of it and fully utilizing it. It made the depth of the magic systems within the Wheel of Time really echo broader. It felt like, with channeling and the World of Dreams and a few other things going on, like Talviren, there are these beacons of light of these are the magic systems. But the Wolf Brothers, to me, felt a little bit outside. There's this glowing light in the distance, and it made me wonder, what are the lights beyond that one? What else could we find if we just dug a little deeper? So anyway, guys, that is I chose, how many did I choose here? 3, 6, 10. I chose 10. That is my 10 magic randomly selected, not randomly, I chose them all for a specific purpose. It's my 10 magic systems selected and ranked. And here's what I'm going to do. I want you guys to suggest magics. Here's what I want from you guys. I want you guys to go through and comment down below in the comments down there, which tier ranking video would you like me to do next. I'll have a pinned comment. Just put one in there. The most upvoted one I will do next, and that way there's a little more community engagement with these tier lists. Anyway, guys, like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. Hit the merch if you want to represent the channel. It's super cozy and comfy. I've been told Teespring is still sending me samples, but there's phone cases, mugs, hoodies, sweatshirts, t-shirts, all kinds of cool stuff. And I'm already kind of feeling like I should work on some more designs because I want there to be a lot of stuff. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.